Imagine this. You're standing in a room full of people. Someone says something cruel, maybe about you, maybe about someone else. Everyone stays quiet. No one moves. And in that silence, the cruelty grows louder, because silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's permission. We've all been taught that silence is golden, that restraint is strength. And yes, Stoicism does praise thoughtful silence. But here's what most people miss. Stoicism never confuses silence with surrender. The ancient Stoics weren't passive observers of injustice. They were active defenders of virtue, reason, and human dignity. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while wrestling with inner chaos. Seneca advised emperors while speaking truth to power, even when it cost him his life. So if you've ever held your tongue when something inside you screamed to speak, this video is for you. Because there are moments when staying silent isn't wisdom, it's complicity. Moments when your voice isn't just useful, it's necessary. In fact, according to Stoic philosophy, there are 7 specific situations where breaking your silence isn't just allowed, it's your moral duty. And today, we're diving deep into each one. Not with vague platitudes, but with real-world clarity, psychological insight, and timeless Stoic principles that cut through modern confusion. Before we begin, if you're tired of toxic positivity, fake good vibes only advice, and want grounded, courageous wisdom for real life, hit subscribe. Because what you're about to hear could change how you show up in your relationships, your work, and your own conscience. And stick around until the end, because the last point might be the most powerful one of all. Now, let's talk about when silence becomes betrayal. Number 1, when facing injustice. Let's start with the most urgent reason to break your silence: injustice. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, "Oh great, another preachy video about speaking up," stop. This isn't about performative outrage or virtue signaling. This is about moral clarity. And Stoicism has been crystal clear on this for over 2,000 years. Seneca wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness and for justice. But kindness without justice is just sentimentality. And justice without voice? It doesn't exist. Think about it. Injustice doesn't need loud villains to survive. It thrives in the quiet complicity of good people who tell themselves, 'It's not my problem,' or 'someone else will say something.' But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you witness harm and say nothing, you become part of the architecture that holds that harm in place. This isn't just about grand acts of oppression. It's the coworker who gets talked over in every meeting, the friend whose partner subtly belittles them at dinner, the stranger being mocked for how they look or speak. These are daily tests of your character, not your courage in battle, but your courage in the mundane. The Stoics didn't believe in reckless confrontation. Marcus Aurelius always asked, "Is this within my control?" But your voice, that is within your control. And when you use it, not with rage, but with calm conviction, you align yourself with logos, the rational order of the universe. You restore balance. And no, you don't need to give a TED talk. Sometimes justice sounds like, "That wasn't okay. I saw what happened. I'm here for you." We don't treat people that way in this space. Short, clear, unshaken. Remember, silence in the face of wrongdoing doesn't make you neutral. It makes you an accomplice by omission. And Stoicism demands more than passivity. It demands virtuous action. So ask yourself, where have I stayed silent when my conscience whispered otherwise? Maybe it's time to let that whisper become a voice. If this resonates, if you've ever regretted staying quiet when someone needed you to speak, drop a comment below. Tell us one word, justice, or share a time when speaking up changed everything. Your story might give someone else the courage to do the same. Number 2, when your boundaries are crossed. Let's talk about something deeply personal. Something that doesn't always make headlines, but quietly erodes your self-respect every single day. Boundary violations. Stoicism is often misunderstood as emotional detachment or passive endurance. But here's what the Stoics actually taught. You are responsible for protecting your inner citadel. That includes your time, your energy, your values, and yes, your boundaries. When someone crosses a line, whether it's a friend who constantly cancels plans last minute, a family member who guilt trips you into compliance, or a partner who ignores your no, and you say nothing, you're not being peaceful. You're teaching them that your limits don't matter. Epictetus put it bluntly. If you want to improve, be content to seem foolish or unlearned in external things. Don't wish to seem knowledgeable. And if some regard you as important, distrust yourself. In other words, don't confuse people-pleasing with virtue. Real strength lies in honoring your own truth, even when it disappoints others. Now, setting boundaries isn't about control. It's about clarity. It's not aggression. It's self-preservation wrapped in dignity. And silence. Silence in this context is self-abandonment. Every time you swallow your discomfort to keep the peace, you fracture your relationship with yourself. Think of it like this. Boundaries aren't walls. They're gates. And only you hold the key. If you never speak up when someone walks through without permission, eventually they'll assume the gate doesn't exist. Worse, they'll start inviting others in. So how do you speak up without turning into someone you don't recognize? Start simple. Calm, direct. I'm not available for that. I need you to stop speaking to me that way. This doesn't work for me, and I won't pretend it does. No justification, no apology for having needs, just clean, clear truth. And remember, people who respect you will adjust. People who only liked your silence will leave. And that's not loss, that's liberation. Because here's the Stoic secret. Your peace isn't found in avoiding conflict. It's found in living in alignment with your principles. And if your principle is self-respect, then silence in the face of violation is betrayal, not of others, but of yourself. Ask yourself now, where have I let someone cross my boundary and stayed quiet to avoid discomfort? Maybe it's time to reclaim that piece of yourself. If this hits home, comment below with boundary or share one boundary you're committing to enforce this week. Your voice, even in a comment, can be the first act of reclamation. Number 3, when truth must be spoken. Here's a hard truth. Lies don't need believers to survive. They just need silence. Stoicism places truth at the very core of virtue. For the Stoics, living in accordance with nature meant living in alignment with reality, not with comfort, not with convenience, but with what is. And when falsehood spreads unchallenged, reality itself gets distorted. That's why the third moment you must break your silence is simple but profound. When truth must be spoken. This isn't about winning arguments or proving you're right. It's about refusing to let deception become the default. Whether it's a friend spreading rumors disguised as concern, a colleague taking credit for your work, or a public narrative that erases facts for emotional appeal, your silence becomes the soil where lies take root. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. But if they can't, and they're clearly wrong, then I owe it to reason and to others not to pretend otherwise. Notice, he doesn't say shout them down. He says refuse to pretend. That's the key. Truth doesn't demand volume. It demands presence. And in today's world, where misinformation spreads faster than facts, speaking truth isn't just noble, it's necessary. But here's the Stoic twist. Speak truth without attachment to how it's received. Your duty is to voice it, not to control the reaction. Maybe that looks like gently correcting a false assumption. Actually, that's not what happened. I was there. Or naming a pattern. I've noticed this keeps getting twisted. Let's set the record straight. Or simply refusing to nod along. I can't agree with that, and I won't stay silent while it's repeated. You don't need an audience. You don't need applause. You just need integrity. Because every time you choose truth over ease, you strengthen your own character, and you give others permission to do the same. Silence might keep the peace for a moment, but only truth builds lasting trust. So ask yourself, where have I stayed quiet while falsehoods took hold? Was it to avoid tension? To seem agreeable? To protect someone's feelings, even at the cost of reality? The Stoics would say, that's not kindness. That's cowardice dressed as compassion. Your voice, grounded in fact and delivered with calm, is a gift, not just to those who hear it, but to the very idea of honesty itself. If you've ever chosen truth in a world that rewards conformity, drop a comment below with truth, or share one situation where speaking honestly changed the course of a relationship or decision. Your example might be the nudge someone else needs. Number 4, when someone needs guidance. Now, let's shift from defense to generosity. Because the fourth moment you must break your silence isn't about protecting yourself. It's about lifting someone else up. Stoicism is often seen as a philosophy of personal resilience. But the ancient Stoics were deeply committed to oikiosis, the idea that we are naturally connected to others, and that our well-being is tied to the well-being of the whole. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule Rome for himself. He saw leadership as service. Seneca wrote letters not to show off his wisdom, but to guide a friend through despair. So when someone is lost, confused, or heading down a path that harms them, and you have insight that could help. Withholding your wisdom isn't humility, it's neglect. Of course, this doesn't mean unsolicited lectures or playing savior. The Stoics warned against arrogance. But if someone asks for your perspective, or if you see genuine suffering, you can ease with a few honest words. Then silence becomes a form of selfishness. Think of it like this. Wisdom unused is like medicine unshared. You might have survived a storm they're just entering. You might recognize a pattern they can't yet see. Your experience, forged through pain, reflection, and growth, isn't just yours. It's a resource for the human community. And yes, they might not listen. They might even resent you. But as Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. Your duty is to offer guidance with kindness and clarity, not to control the outcome. So how do you speak without overstepping? Start with permission. Would you be open to a different way of looking at this? Or share vulnerably, I went through something similar, here's what I learned. Or simply name what you see. It seems like you're carrying a lot alone. You don't have to. No judgment, no agenda, just presence. Because sometimes, one sentence, spoken at the right time, can reroute an entire life. And if you stay silent out of fear, modesty, or indifference, you rob someone of a chance to heal, grow, or awaken. Ask yourself, who in my life is struggling in silence and might benefit from my honest, compassionate voice? Not to fix them, but to walk beside them with clearer eyes. The Stoics believed we're all students and teachers at once. So don't hoard your hard-won wisdom. Offer it like a lantern in the dark, not to blind, but to illuminate. If you've ever been guided by someone's timely words, or if you've spoken up and changed someone's path, comment below with guidance or share a brief note about that moment. Your story could spark a chain reaction of courage. Number 5. When silence is used as manipulation. Let's talk about one of the most insidious forms of control. One that doesn't shout, but withholds. Emotional silence used as manipulation. You know the pattern. Someone gives you the cold shoulder after a disagreement. They stop responding to your messages, not because they're busy, but to punish you. They withdraw affection, communication, or presence until you behave the way they want. And in that vacuum, you start questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Am I too much? Should I just apologize to fix it? This isn't peace. This is covert coercion, and Stoicism sees right through it. The Stoics valued inner freedom above all. Epictetus, born a slave, famously said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And if you allow someone's strategic silence to dictate your actions, emotions, or self-worth, you've surrendered your autonomy. Silence becomes manipulation when it's weaponized, not as reflection, but as pressure, not as space, but as leverage. And the moment you recognize that pattern, you have a duty to yourself to break the spell by speaking clearly, not with anger, not with desperation, but with unshakable clarity. I notice you've gone silent, and I won't chase you for basic respect. If you're upset, I'm open to talking, but I won't be punished with silence. Your withdrawal feels like control, not communication. This isn't drama. It's boundary enforcement with awareness. You're naming the dynamic so it can't operate in the shadows. And here's the Stoic insight. Manipulators rely on your fear of abandonment or conflict. But if you've done your inner work, if your worth isn't tethered to their approval, you can speak without crumbling. You can say what needs saying, then let the outcome rest in the hands of fate. Amor fati. Remember, healthy silence is chosen. Toxic silence is imposed. One creates space, the other creates power imbalances. So ask yourself, have I ever been held hostage by someone's silence and stayed quiet to avoid rocking the boat? Or worse, have I used silence to control someone else? The Stoics would urge you to examine both, because true virtue requires honesty, not just with others, but with your own patterns. Breaking manipulative silence isn't about winning. It's about refusing to play a game that degrades human dignity. It's choosing dialogue over domination, even if the other person walks away. If you've experienced this kind of silent treatment, or if you've caught yourself using it, comment below with clarity or share how you reclaimed your voice. Your honesty could help someone realize they're not crazy. They're being controlled. Number 6. When your reputation is at stake. Let's be clear. Stoicism doesn't care about fame, likes, or public approval. But it does care deeply about integrity. And your reputation, when grounded in truth and virtue, is the outward reflection of that integrity. So here's the 6th moment you must break your silence. When false narratives threaten to define you and distort who you truly are. Now, this isn't about defending your ego. It's not about lashing out at every rumor or online jab. The Stoics warned against being ruled by others' opinions. But they also understood that character is your most valuable possession. And if a lie spreads unchecked, it can damage your ability to act with honor in your relationships, your work, and your community. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But he never said, "Let lies stand unchallenged." In fact, he spent much of his reign correcting misinformation, clarifying his intentions, and leading with transparent action, even when misunderstood. So when someone falsely accuses you of dishonesty, betrayal, or malice, and that falsehood begins to shape how others treat you, you're not being vain by speaking up. You're protecting your capacity to live virtuously in the world. Think of it like this. If your name becomes synonymous with something untrue, doors close, trust erodes, opportunities vanish, not because you've done wrong, but because silence allowed fiction to become fact. And no, you don't need a press conference. A calm, direct response is often enough. That's not accurate, and I want to set the record straight. I value honesty, so I need to clarify what actually happened. I won't let a false story define me, but I also won't attack. Here's the truth. Notice the tone, firm, not furious, grounded, not defensive. That's the Stoic way. Because defending your integrity isn't pride, it's responsibility. You owe it to yourself, yes, but also to those who rely on your consistency, your ethics, your word. Ask yourself, have I ever let a false impression linger because I feared seeming too sensitive or needy? Maybe it's time to realize that clarity isn't weakness. It's respect for truth and for those who deserve to know it. And remember, you're not controlling what people think. You're simply refusing to let deception go unchallenged. The rest, that's up to them and to fate. If you've ever had to reclaim your narrative after being misrepresented, comment below with integrity, or share how you responded with grace under fire. Your example might give someone else permission to stand tall without stooping low. Number 7. When you can inspire change. We've covered silence in defense of justice, boundaries, truth, others, yourself. But now, let's talk about silence in service. The 7th and final moment you must speak is when your words can ignite transformation in others, in systems, or even in the culture itself. Stoicism isn't just a shield, it's a spark. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations for fame. He wrote it to remind himself how to lead with wisdom during plague, war, and personal grief. Yet those private reflections have inspired millions across 2 millennia. Why? Because authentic, principled speech echoes far beyond its moment. You don't need a stage. You don't need millions of followers. But if you see a way to reframe a problem, offer hope in despair, or model courage where fear reigns, withholding your voice isn't modesty. It's missed stewardship. The Stoics believed we're all part of a shared human fabric, sympathia. And when one thread shines with clarity, it lifts the whole weave. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting with a solution no one considered. Maybe it's sharing your story of recovery to give someone else permission to heal. Maybe it's simply saying, "There's another way," when everyone assumes the status quo is fixed. This isn't about grandiosity. It's about generosity of perspective. Your insight, forged through pain, reflection, and resilience, isn't yours alone. It belongs to the collective. And yes, change is slow. People may resist. But as Seneca wrote, it's not because things are difficult that we dare not venture. It's because we dare not venture that they are difficult. Your voice might be the first stone in an avalanche. So ask, what truth do I carry that could lighten someone's burden or shift their path? not to impress, but to connect. Not to dominate, but to awaken. Speak not with certainty, but with humility. I used to think like that, until this changed me. What if we tried seeing it differently? I don't have all the answers, but here's what helped me. That's how movements begin. Not with shouts, but with seeds. Because silence may keep you safe, but speech aligned with virtue builds a better world. And that's the highest Stoic calling. If you've ever spoken up and seen someone's eyes light up with realization, or if you've been inspired by someone's unexpected words, comment below with "change," or share how one sentence altered your course. Let's remind each other. Your voice matters more than you think. So let's bring this home. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be loud for the sake of noise. It asks you to be wise enough to know when silence serves virtue and when it betrays it. Injustice, broken boundaries, lies, someone lost in confusion, manipulative silence, threats to your integrity, and moments ripe for transformation. These aren't just reasons to speak. They're calls to live your philosophy out loud. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You just need the courage to say what's true, kind, and necessary, exactly when it matters most. If this resonated, smash that subscribe button, because wisdom like this shouldn't stay silent. And if you made it this far, drop a final comment. Which of these 7 moments hit you hardest? Justice, boundary, truth. Let's keep the conversation alive.